I will call upon Dr. Stefano Duglio. He is Associate Professor in Environmental Management System, Department of Management, and Vice President, NARTRISC, Interdepartmental Research Center on Natural Risk in Mountain and Hilly Environment, University of Torino, Italy. And his presentation is on models of sustainable tourism, case study of agri-tourism in mountains of Italian Alps. And I will not take much time. I invite you, sir, and the floor is yours. You can start now.
Okay, thank you. Many thanks, Professor, for your introduction, and many thanks to the organizer, and in particular to Dr. Ashat for inviting me today to share, let me say, both the methodologies and the results that we have provided by carrying out a research project in small mountain communities in the Italian Alps. Well, the title is Model of Sustainable Tourism, a case of agritourism. Why agritourism? Because thanks to a specific and devoted project in Emeritus Eco-Management for Agritourism in Mountain Areas, we have tried to integrate two different supply chains, the agricultural supply chain and the tourism sector, working from the very beginning with local stakeholders and local actors. So we created an advisory board starting from the local community, and in particular the municipality of Valpato Soana, the location, the place in which we have worked, and the metropolitan area of Torino, the Association for Farmers, Coldiretti, the Chamber of Commerce, and a very important local player, the first ever established Italian national park, the Gran Paradiso National Park, dated 1922. Well, we had two main goals. The first one was to create an eco-management model specifically devoted to marginal mountain regions in order to improve the connection between these two supply chains, the agriculture and tourism, because we do think that in this kind of mountain areas, the so-called marginal Italian mountain areas, we can rely specifically on these two kinds of, let me say, activities, farm and the hospitality sector. In doing so, we tried to, let me say, to improve the relationship between local actors. One of the great problems that normally we have to cope with is the need to make it possible for local operators to communicate each other in order to share a common vision for a better territorial development and in our vision for developing a territorial area in a more sustainable way. So this is the reason why from the very beginning we involved local actors, local operators, in order to, let me say, to define, to draft new ways for creating tourism solutions that are, in the meantime, let me say, local operator-based tourism solution. Well, we are located more or less in this area. Okay, Torino is located more or less in this area, so in the northwest of the Italian Alps, in a region that is called the Piedmont region. The Piedmont region, because basically the name Piedmont means on the feet of mountains, and indeed the metropolitan area of Torino, the city where I live, is surrounded by most important mountains in the Italian Alps. So all the 5,000 peaks are in the Aosta Valley, but they are quite easily detectable from the city of Torino. And the mountains, the mountain ranges accounts for about 50% of the total regional surface. But on the other hand, we have to underline that the mountain communities are very different, even if we are discussing about the same administrative region. Indeed, we can recognize some mountain communities that are, let me say, very well developed, considering social and economic indicators, but on the other hand, we can recognize several mountain communities. Each patch basically means a municipality, so a very well defined, let me say, small mountain communities that have high level of marginality. So in our research, we decided to concentrate our attention especially in this region, a very small mountain valleys called the Soana mountain valleys, with high or medium level of marginality in terms of social and economic indicators, because on the other hand, when we have to discuss about the level of biodiversity, these areas are really rich in terms of biodiversity, thanks to the presence of the first Italian national park, the Gran Paradiso National Park. Well, for giving you the picture of this mountain community, Valle Soana is composed by 3 municipalities. For about all the municipalities together count about 500 inhabitants, so a very small mountain community that lives in a surface of about 18,000 hectares, starting from 600 meters and 3,000 meters above sea level. Well, of course, we have 3 main municipalities with several hamlets, and population is scattered for all the different secondary mountain valleys that altogether compose the Soana Valley. And of course, this situation reflects on the economic activities and the economic fabric of this area. In fact, when we discuss about agriculture in this specific environment, we have to highlight that only a very minimum amount of land, more or less 1 hectare, is devoted to crops and to other kind of food products. But overall, only more or less 700 hectares, about 3.7% of the overall surface, is devoted to agriculture, in particular to pastoralism and to livestock breeding, that represent an important activity for the valley, thanks to which we can provide several kinds of local food products, mountain local food products, starting from different kinds of cheese, honey, and so on. But in any case, we are discussing about niche production and niche products that we need to valorize in order to make it possible for local farmers to take advantages on the fact that they are producing in a very rich environment in terms of biodiversity. Well, on the other hand, when we discuss about the tourism sector, well, the tourism sector is something underdeveloped in these areas, differently from other mountain areas in the Piedmont region. The Suana Valley wasn't able to rely on the ski industry, and that is great in some ways because the form of tourism that we can appreciate in this part of my region is much more related to a form of sustainable tourism or ecotourism with a bottom-up, let me say, a bottom-up approach. So each new form of tourism starts from the local people and the local measure that try to identify new form of tourism, always paying attention to the territory, to the carrying capacity of the territory. In this specific area, we can rely on a couple of hotels, a bivouac for the Great Crossing of the Alps, La Grande Traversée des Alpes, because the tourism in this area is basically rely on hikers and climbers. And in terms of arrivals and presence, we don't have many arrivals and presence during the years. And what's more, the average duration of stay is about 1.7 days. So we need to improve a little bit in terms of arrival and presence in order to improve in terms of average duration of stay. Because if we are able to switch from 1.7 days for each tourist to 2 or 3 days for each tourist, well, these tourists will be able to give more money and more follow-ups in the territory. Well, a couple of pictures only to show you the typical landscape of this kind of valleys. We started by analyzing, by considering the two supply chain in a separate way in order to integrate all the data in an eco-management tool. So we started by analyzing the agricultural supply chains, as usual, starting from official sources, but also thanks to the help of the local operators. I completely agree with the previous panelist. The involvement of the local operator is the key point when we try to define a way of sustainable tourism, or above all, when we need to try to find out a new way for developing an areas, local areas. So this is the reason why we created 2 different kind of forums, the stakeholder forums, with all the, let me say, all the public entities, public associations, useful in order to carry out all the different analysis and the research. But we also created a so-called operators forum, thanks to which we were able to share the ongoing results, the ongoing methodologies of our research in order to have their feedback for, let me say, for creating new way for the research itself. Then, together with the analysis of the Montal agricultural supply chain, we made a set of analysis for having an understanding on, especially on the pastoral systems, so the grazing management, but also, let me say, the quality of forage, the quality of the different vegetation partners, in order to understand if and how much it is able to improve in terms of both the qualitative and the quantitative aspect of the food products, the local food products. And as far as the tourism sector is concerned, we studied both the demand and the offering in order to detect if there were some important differences between the tourism offering and the tourist expectations and the tourist needs and demand, so that all, let me say, the outcomes deriving from the first, the second, and the third phase have filled the so-called environmental preliminary analysis. The EPA, the EPA is a specific document requested by the international standardization when implementing an environmental management systems to be certified by a third independent entity. Our final aim wasn't the certification in accordance with an international standard. Our final aim was the implementation of an eco-management model based on the community needs and expectation, in order to give, let me say, a master plan for developing future actions and future tourism activities. Well, analysis of a mountain agricultural supply chains. We focus our attention on the one hand, very niche local production and specifically the production of GNP. GNP is an alpine plant that normally is used in order to produce alcohol. We have for a very strong alcohol, I would add, we have for local farmers that are in this kind of business. Of course, the production are very limited, but in collaboration with the Grand Paradiso National Park, our local farmers will be able to use very local plant in order to produce alcohol, to try to produce other kind of secondary, let me say, food products. But our attention was specifically concentrated on pastoralism. So the first thing that we tried to do, and I think we did it quite well, was a vegetation mapping. So basically, we went to all our 14 pastoralism areas in order to assess, to evaluate, to find out the different kind of vegetations. So we were able to map 42 pastoral types out of 93 pastoral types that normally we can recognize in my region. So that means that there is a high level of biodiversity in this area, and this first indicator, a couple of pictures in order to show you a typical pastoralism environment, divided into the two main vegetation types that we were able to detect, together with the other vegetation types, of course. And this first evaluation make it possible for us to define a first indicator, the forage quality, that together with other indicator much more related to the grazing management, so the areas interested by fertility, the state of the buildings, the availability of water for cattle, and the different kind of cheese production, made it possible to create a synthesis index that was shared with all our farmers in order to understand where and how much they may be able to improve their activities in order to produce maybe the same kind and the same quantity of cheese or derivatives from cheese, from milk, sorry, but on the other hand, in order to improve the quality of their production, quality that are based on very, very strong elements as the vegetation plants that we have detected during the analysis. Well, so one part of our research was devoted to study specifically to study the agriculture and the pastoralism sector. On the other hand, in a separate way, and this part is much more related to my specific expertise, was devoted to study the tourism sector, and in particular for both the tourism offering and the demand. We adopted a so-called participatory approach. So we started by interviewing basically the local operators in order to have an idea of their vision about the tourism, both in terms of tourists and in terms of offering of tourist activities. So we made 17 interviews out of 21 operators. So 90% of all our operators, we are discussing of a very small mountain communities, starting from the public administrators, so the three major of Inghero, Ronco Canavese, and Vapato Soana, hospitality facilities, more or less everybody, and the 5 retailers. We adopt a technique so-called the Delphi methodology. So our interviews were semi-structured interviews using always the same kind of document in order to point out common points even among different kind of stakeholder. We use all this kind of information in order to create a diagram that for sure you know, the so-called SWOT analysis. So it's a diagram that is able to divide, to identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for the territory. And in a devoted forum, we discuss our SWOT analysis with all the operators. Divided the operators into subgroups in order to converge all the different outputs derived from our first SWOT analysis into several key points. So we adopted the so-called nominal group technique. So in order to start from the local community, in order to start by involving local operators and the local community for creating what my colleague has defined in a very effective way as a community-based tourism, we decided to adopt a mixed methodology with a Delphi method technique cross with a nominal group technique in a devoted forum in order to find out basic key points useful for drafting the mentioned master plan for creating new vision in terms of tourism offering. One of the outcome of this activity was the fact that we were able to create, after this experience, we were able to create permanent working groups of local operators that discuss together with the measure in order to find out a common solution. So it was quite interesting, this phase. So starting from the single operator, in this case, the vice mayor of the municipality of Ronco Canavese, we were able to create our first SWOT analysis. Then in a specific forum of operators with all the local actors. We discuss on common outputs in order to draft elements useful for having a new vision. So among the strengths, for instance, the presence of a protected area, but also a very strong natural and cultural heritage. So a very strong identity, local identity. So this was one of the key points. We should start from the local identity. Our local identity is quite peculiar, together with the natural heritage, in order to understand which kind of tourism we would like for the future. Because we have to understand that there may be some threats when discussing about tourism and mass tourism, as the colleague from the Carpathian has pointed out in a very well way. Mass tourism represents a threat for the local community, especially for small local communities, and local communities are well aware of this kind of potential problem, because mass tourism can drive to a loss of the cultural heritage that, on the other hand, is seen as a very positive and a key point to be developed and to be preserved. Among the opportunities, protected area again, the role of the second homes, it's quite typical in this part of the Italian Alps, is a specific, a peculiar characteristics of this part of the Italian Alps, and the fact that we are so close to a quite important urban center. So Torino counts for about 1 million of inhabitants. So it may be interesting to understand how we can reach this critical mass, how we can interact with such a critical mass in order to stimulate the tourism sector. Well, all these results, methodologies, outcomes are free. You can download it. You can find it by downloading this paper, published on sustainability and open access, journal that you can find quite easily on the web, of course. I'm sure you know it. We started by involving people, then we decided to understand what about the tourism destination itself. Because people, local actors, may have an idea. So we are a sustainable tourism destination. We have a very strong cultural and natural identity. We should base the tourism on these two main factors, avoiding mass tourism and so on. But what about the destination now? In order to understand the destination at that specific moment, I'm referring to 2019, we decided to apply a model created by Weber, a model for destination management, for defining the sustainable destination management, theorized by Weber, a qualitative model, and we try to create a quantitative presentation of these specific areas. So the goal of this part was to analyze the sustainability of the Soana Valley and compare them with other mountain municipalities in the area. Very briefly, the Weber model divide destination, tourist destination, into 4 different typologies, depending on 2 main factors: the level of tourism intensity and the level of regulation. So thanks to this classification, we can basically recognize 4 kinds of tourism destination: the so-called mass tourism destination that can be sustainable mass tourism destination or unsustainable mass tourism destination, or the so-called niche destination that can be sustainable niche destination or unsustainable niche.
Excuse me.
Yeah?
Yeah, Professor Stefano, you have 2 minutes left.
How many minutes? Sorry, I didn't catch it.
2 minutes left. Yeah.
Okay. So very briefly, we use a set of indicators. We use 7 indicators after selecting these 7 indicators, starting from 41 indicators. You can find all the methodology and the results in this specific presentation. And we were able to note that indeed our area can be classified as niche sustainable mountain destination. Well, so here you will be able to find out all the details in order to see this work. Well, third and last part of the tourism research was devoted to understand the opinions and expectations of the tourists. So we interview 500 Italian tourists. The tourism in this valley is a form of eat and run tourism. So we specifically decided to study the one-day tourism in order to understand how these tourist interacts with the local environment. Just a couple of hints for completing the picture. There is an interest in purchasing local food products. There is an interest in activity in gastronomy activities. Is the third reason for visiting this valley. There is a good interaction with local actors in purchasing and tasting local food recipes or in purchasing local food products. On the other end, when we discuss the revenue on the territory, the revenue is very small, because even assuming a liberal scenario, in this we hope ongoing publication, you will be able to find out all the results indeed. Even assuming a liberal scenario, the average expenditure for each tourist is about 20 euros. So not so much compared to other mountain destinations. So why all these deliverables? All the deliverables were used in order to fill the management system, and in particular the environmental preliminary analysis, that based on the international standardization with the leadership of the local community, of course, the interaction with all the stakeholders, the local stakeholders and the tourist, all the different outcomes deriving from the different phases, so market of products, tourism management, competitors, legal requirements, and so on, agricultural and tourism chain, retailers, farmer, and operators of the hospitality industry. Well, all these outcomes were used in order to fill the strategic plan, thanks to which the local community, and in particular the Barbatos-One municipality, together with the other 2 municipalities, are using for drafting the new activities for the following years. And we are interacting together with those municipalities for creating new opportunities for the local development. Well, all the references are listed in these 2 slides, and I'm so sorry if I went a little bit late. Many thanks.
Okay, thank you very much for your this very methodologically very rich presentation, in which you have now introduced this agri-tourism. I think it is new concept in the domain of tourism. And also you just described that this mountain agriculture supply chain, and also you have mapped the area of that case study area where you conducted this study. The pictures were very beautiful also. And one important thing I have understood, your SWOT analysis of this agri-tourism. So in all, and your methodology is so rich, as I observed. So in all, it was very good presentation, and I thank you very much for your presentation once again, Professor Stefano.